Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a really intriguing collection of source material today from the Observer Group newspapers of Southern California.
Yeah, quite a mix.
Definitely. So for this deep dive, our mission really is to cut through the noise. We want to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights.
Giving you a shortcut to being well informed on these topics.
Exactly. And they are diverse, but you start to see connections. We'll be looking at a potential big shift in the language around equity.
Right, the MAO proposal.
And there's the impact of household debt, very personal, very systemic.
The student loan figures are pretty eye-opening there.
Absolutely. And the passing of a music legend, Sly Stone, huge influence.
Undeniably.
Plus some, well, innovative, maybe surprising approaches to policy in California.
Insurance and public health, yeah.
So this deep dive, it's tailored to help you get the knowledge quickly, but, thoroughly. Hopefully some aha moments without feeling overloaded.
Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, this fascinating proposed shift from the Black press. We're talking about Dr. Benjamin F. Chavez Jr., President and CEO of the NNPA.
The National Newspaper Publishers Association.
Right. He's advocating for a completely new framework. The idea is merit, advancement, and opportunity, MAO, to replace or at least succeed diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. That feels significant, a real reframing.
It is. And what's really fascinating here is Dr. Chavez's direct rationale for it. He states that the DEI framework, despite its initial goals, has, in his view, been manipulated and weaponized by far-right forces.
Weaponized. Okay.
Yeah, specifically to, quote, undermine the progress of communities of color in America. He really emphasizes that words matter. He recalls the history, the backlash against terms like affirmative action, critical race theory, how they got twisted.
Right, the language itself becomes a battleground.
Exactly. And this MAO concept, interestingly, it came out of an intergenerational discussion within his own family.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Oxford, North Carolina. His family has been there for over 200 years. And Chavez makes the point that Black Americans have always, quote, worked hard to attain excellence and respect, that merit has always been part of their identity.
So it's not just changing words, it's a strategic move, defining their own path.
That seems to be the core idea. It's strategic.
That context helps a lot with the why. So if MAO is meant to be different, how is it designed to act differently, conceptually, compared to DEI?
Good question. While DEI often focus on representation, sort of addressing systemic barriers, Chavez presents MAO as emphasizing individual and community agency more directly. It aims to be aspirational, without limitations.
Okay, break that down. Merit, advancement, opportunity.
Right, so merit, recognizing and rewarding ability achievement. Yeah. Pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Advancement, tying progress, upward mobility, directly to measurable contribution.
Measurable contributions, got it.
And opportunity.
Yeah.
Ensuring everyone has access to the resources they need to succeed. And crucially, without bias tied to race, gender, or identity.
So the focus shifts.
The focus shifts. It's described as promoting a fair, objective, and efficient system where individuals succeed based on their merits. The key conceptual difference, maybe, is that MAO tries to bypass the political fights DEI got tangled in. It reframes the conversation around concepts Chavez feels are harder to attack because they're seen as universally valued and, as he argues, historically central to Black progress anyway.
And he sees this as a practical bridge, too, especially where corporations might be backing away from DEI but not offering anything else.
Precisely. He notes that Gap executives backpedaling on DEI commitments with no alternative. He hopes this sparks a wider national dialogue, refinement, discussion, ultimately moving democracy forward to, as he puts it, reclaim the oneness of humanity.
A very intentional effort to recenter the conversation.
Definitely.
Wow. Okay, from reframing equity, let's pivot to something very foundational, too, the economic bedrock for many households, which seems to be under significant stress.
Yeah, the latest debt reports.
Right, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Total household debt hitting $18.2 trillion in Q1 2025. That's just a huge number.
It is staggering.
And while things like credit card debt saw small dips, student loan balances jumped. Another $16 billion, reaching $1.63 trillion.
But the real headline seems to be the delinquencies.
Exactly. A dramatic increase following the end of those federal student loan payment protections. Can you break down those numbers for us?
Yeah, the numbers really paint a stark picture. We're talking nearly 6 million student loan borrowers. That's about 14% of them who were 90 days or more delinquent or even in default just between January and March this year.
14%. And that's up from almost nothing during the freeze.
Right. During the 43-month payment freeze because of COVID, delinquency rates were under 1%. Payments restarted October 2023, but then there was that 12-month on-ramp.
The grace period.
Where missed payments weren't reported to credit bureaus. That ended late 2024. So early 2025. That's when the dam broke, basically. We saw this flood of newly reported delinquencies.
And the impact on credit scores.
Immediate and significant. Over 2.2 million people saw their scores drop by over 100 points.
Wow.
And for over 1 million of those, the drop was at least 150 points. Think about that. And for borrowers who actually had good credit before scores above 720, the average drop was a massive 177 points.
177 points. That's a huge hit.
Yeah.
And it has such knock-on effects. Ted Rossman from Bankrate said, your credit score is one of the most important numbers in your financial life.
Absolutely.
And Matt Schultz at LendingTree put it even more bluntly. It can literally cost you tens of thousands of dollars or more over the course of your life. The example they gave, a $300,000 loan. The difference between a 620 score and a 780 score could mean paying an extra $60,000 in mortgage interest, just based on that score drop.
It's a sobering reminder, one policy shift, and you see these immediate, widespread personal consequences.
So this raises an important question. Who is being hit hardest by this? Does the report tell us anything about demographics?
It does. It indicates that student loan delinquency is disproportionately affecting older borrowers now. The average age of a delinquent borrower has actually climbed to 40.4 years old.
40. So not just recent grads.
No, not at all. Older millennials especially seem to be struggling the most with resuming these payments. It really highlights a generational challenge in managing this kind of debt long term.
And this is happening while other debts are maybe leveling off slightly.
Well, credit card and auto loan balances had modest declines, yeah. But the overall household debt increase, that's mainly driven by housing. Mortgages up $199 billion. ELO's common equity lines of credit, they've been rising for 12 straight quarters.
So it's a complex picture of financial pressure.
Very much so.
Yeah.
A tangled web for many households.
Okay, so for anyone listening who might be facing this or knows someone who is, what's the actionable advice? What do the experts suggest for starting to rebuild that credit?
The experts really stress patience, taking gradual steps. Ted Rossman's top tip, just stay current on all your payments. That's the most crucial thing.
Okay, makes sense.
Beyond that, becoming an authorized user on a family member's credit card, if they have good credit, can help. Their positive history can reflect on yours.
Okay.
And then there are tools like secured credit cards or credit builder loans. These are specifically designed for people needing to establish or reestablish a positive credit history.
So there are paths forward, but it takes time.
It's definitely a long game, yeah. But consistent good behavior can make a real difference in mending those scores.
Okay, good advice. Now, from the very direct financial impacts, let's shift gears to a cultural touchstone, someone whose impact crossed generations. We recently learned of the passing of Sylvester Stewart. The world knew him as Sly Stone, frontman of the groundbreaking Sly and the Family Stone. He was 82.
Yeah, very sad news. His family confirmed he passed peacefully. He'd been peddling COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and other health issues.
A true giant. Tell us a bit about his early life and his contributions. He was groundbreaking from the start, wasn't he?
Absolutely. Born March 15th, 1943, in Denton, Texas. He was recording gospel music with his siblings when he was just 8 years old.
8? Wow.
By his teens, he'd mastered multiple instruments, guitar, bass, drums, keys. And even then, as a teenager, he was already involved in racially integrated bands, which was pioneering stuff for the time.
Incredible.
Then in 1966, he and his brother Freddie formed Sly and the Family Stone. And that lineup, it was revolutionary, interracial, mixed gender, just unprecedented in the mainstream music industry then.
It really was. And the impact they had culturally, just massive. You think about the hits, Dance to the Music, Everyday People, Thank You, Ballad Maybe, Be Myself Again, and he wrote them all.
Iconic tracks.
Plus the album Stand in '69, and of course that legendary performance at Woodstock. They really cemented their place in history there.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, his musical approach just radically reshaped popular music. He wasn't just blending genres like funk, soul, rock, psychedelia. He was kind of dissolving the boundaries between them.
Yeah, you couldn't easily categorize it.
Exactly. And that empowered a whole new generation of artists to experiment, to defy labels. Plus, his socially conscious lyrics wrapped in these incredibly infectious grooves. The influence spread so wide. You see it in Miles Davis, George Clinton, Prince, Dr. Dre, The Roots. The list goes on.
He really was a catalyst,
Yeah.
creating that progressive soul sound, music that made you move and think.
Perfectly put. Deeply groovy and deeply meaningful.
Now, he definitely faced personal struggles later on, particularly with drug dependency in the 70s, which is well documented. But he also had these remarkable comebacks and received incredible recognition over the years.
He did.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in '93, Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2017, and just last year, his memoir came out.
On Questlove's imprint, yeah.
Right. And he completed a biographical screenplay featured in Questlove's documentary Sly Lives just this year. His legacy is really solid.
And you see that legacy reflected so clearly in the tributes pouring in from other music legends.
Like-
Well, Chuck D from Public Enemy posted, "Rest in peace, Sly Stone," and thanked Questlove for, quote, "keeping his fire blazing in this century."
Nice.
Emmy-winning publicist Danny Deraney shared, "You changed music and me forever." He mentioned that the time Sly won over Ed Sullivan's audience back in '68, simply magical.
Oh, I remember seeing clips of that.
And Eric Alper, a music publicist, summed it up beautifully. The funk pioneer who made the world dance, think, and get higher, his music changed everything, and it still does.
Changed everything, and it still does. That says it all, really. It's hard to imagine modern music without his influence.
Truly indelible fingerprints.
Sly Stone's ability to just break down boundaries, influence generations, it really highlights how these cultural pioneers can redefine whole movements. Now, shifting to a different kind of boundary pushing or maybe problem solving, let's look at California policy. We're seeing some innovative, maybe even surprising approaches to some really deep-seated challenges there.
Right.
Specifically, this unexpected political development. Former state senator Stephen Bradford, Democrat from Inglewood, he dropped his run for lieutenant governor.
Which surprised a few people in Sacramento, I gather.
It did. And instead, he's running for state insurance commissioner.
Now, the timing and context there are really crucial. Bradford spent 8 years in the state Senate. He chaired the powerful Energy, Utilities, and Communications Committee, and he also served on the Insurance Committee. So he knows the players.
He has the background.
He does. And his run for insurance commissioner comes at this moment of real instability in California's insurance market.
You mean with companies pulling out?
Exactly. Major insurers like State Farm, Allstate, they've either exited the state or seriously scaled back coverage, especially for homeowners. They cite high costs, wildfire risks, overregulation,
And the consequence.
a huge surge in enrollment for the FAIR Plan. That's the state's insurer of last resort, the safety net. But it's meant to be a last resort, not the primary option for so many. This surge is putting immense strain on it. There are real concerns about its long-term stability reports. Say it's potentially $1 billion short right now.
$1 billion short.
Yeah.
Wow. That puts enormous pressure on whoever holds that insurance commissioner role.
Huge pressure.
So why did Bradford make the switch? What was his reasoning?
He mentioned a combination of things. He talked about recent fires affecting communities like Altadena, the Palisades, hearing directly from residents who feel like they're in a crisis situation.
Understandable.
And he believes his skill set, specifically his experience chairing the Utilities Committee, bringing together consumer groups, regulators, the utility companies themselves, that kind of bridge building is what's needed now for insurance.
Trying to unite the stakeholders.
Exactly. But he was pretty candid, admitting it wasn't an easy decision, said it required a whole lot of conversation and even more prayer.
So, if elected, what's his plan? How does he envision tackling this crisis?
His approach sounds quite pragmatic, actually. He said his first step would be to bring everybody in the room.
Dialogue first.
Yeah. Insurers, consumer groups, regulators understand the challenges from all sides, find the pinch points for consumers. He's also realistic. He acknowledged he doesn't have all the answers, said he needs to surround myself with experts. And I like this quote, "Being elected does not come with a magic wand."
Refreshing honesty there.
It is. He also noted, California has incredibly expensive real estate, which naturally drives up insurance costs compared to somewhere like Iowa. His aim seems to be collaboration to find sustainable fixes, rather than just imposing rules from the top.
That collaborative approach sounds key. And it sounds like this role connects with him on a deeper level, too. He mentioned linking it to the reparations task force discussions.
Yes, that was a really interesting point he made. A powerful connection. He highlighted what he learned personally from the task force work about, quote, what role insurance played after slavery and the fact that many black folks couldn't get insurance.
Ah, so historical discrimination within the industry itself.
Exactly. He's framing that historical context as part of the broader reparations discussion. It suggests he sees the insurance commissioner role as not just regulatory, but potentially a way to address some of these long-standing inequities and ensure fair access today.
Drawing a line from past injustice to current policy, that adds another layer entirely.
It really does.
Okay, from the complexities of insurance and historical redress, let's turn to our final story. An innovative health initiative in California. Covered California is doing something interesting. They're channeling $15 million money from underperforming health insurance plans into a new program. It's called POPI, Population Health Investments.
POPI.
And the core goal is pretty clear. Improve the health and well-being of their low-income enrollees. This feels like a different way of thinking about health insurance.
It really does. And Dr. Monica Soni, the chief medical officer at Covered California, summed up the philosophy perfectly. She said, most of what determines health happens outside those walls, meaning outside the clinic or hospital walls.
Addressing the social determinants of health.
Precisely. This Beyond California initiative tackles those directly. It has three main parts.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's a grocery support program launched in February. They're distributing $11 million this year alone to about 13,000 enrollees. It targets folks with chronic conditions, asthma, diabetes, hypertension, who are also facing food insecurity. They get at least $80 a month on a debit card for fresh food, groceries, baby food, etc.
Food is medicine, basically.
Exactly. As Dr. Soni put it, it's hard to manage a chronic condition when you're worried about your next meal. Makes perfect sense.
It really does. What's the second part?
Second is a child savings account program launched in March. They're depositing up to $1,000 into CalKids accounts for about 272 infants under 2.
Savings accounts for babies. How does that work?
The funds are linked to completing well-child visits and getting vaccinations, so it connects preventive care now with future educational opportunities later. Dr. Soni highlighted that clear link between good health and educational opportunity.
That's clever. Linking health actions to future savings.
Mm-hmm. And the third part is a $2 million investment in an equity and practice transformation infrastructure project. This helps 46 primary care practices improve things like data integration, get expert support, participate in virtual learning, basically helping them better serve diverse populations.
Oh, wait, 3 distinct programs. But you mentioned the funding is unique. This $15 million, where does it actually come from? It's not new state money.
No, it's not a budget allocation. It comes from their Quality Transformation Initiative.
Quality Transformation Initiative.
Yeah. This program basically penalizes health plans if they fail to meet certain quality benchmarks. Things like controlling blood pressure or diabetes, rates of colorectal cancer screenings, childhood immunizations, key preventative measures.
So plans that don't meet the standards pay a penalty.
That's right. In 2023, 11 plans didn't meet the benchmarks, and these penalties generated the funds for POPHY. So the money isn't just a fine that disappears. It's being strategically reinvested into programs designed to improve the very health outcomes the plans fell short on.
That's a fascinating feedback loop. So the penalties aren't just punitive.
Exactly. Dr. Soni was very clear. Our goal isn't to collect money. It's to ensure that all Covered California enrollees and all Californians achieve the health and wellness they deserve.
Using the mechanism to drive improvement.
Precisely. And they plan to expand the Child Savings Account program and evaluate POPHY's overall impact as they plan for 2026. It's about continuous improvement.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today, an incredible range from, redefining equity with MAO and what that means for social progress.
To the very real personal impact of household debt, especially student loans, and the economic vulnerabilities that exposes.
Remembering a giant like Sly Stone and his monumental musical legacy.
Then diving into California politics, those surprising shifts and the complex challenges around insurance.
And finally, exploring these really innovative approaches to public health, looking way beyond the clinic walls with POPHY.
Yeah, and what seems to connect all these diverse stories, I think, is this thread of societal evolution, right? Individual lives being impacted, and this ongoing need to understand the forces shaping our world forces that often show up in unexpected places.
That's a great way to put it.
Whether it's new definitions challenging old frameworks like DEI, or economic realities hitting home, or even how we think about health. These stories all point to a constant reevaluation of what progress really means in different parts of life.
So as you, our listener, reflect on all this, what stands out to you? Maybe it's how established ideas like DEI evolve with proposals like MAO and how that might change the conversation.
Or maybe it's how issues that seem separate, like student loan debt and mortgage rates, actually converge and profoundly shape people's financial futures.
Yeah, think about that convergence. And what about these new programs from Covered California? What possibilities or maybe even challenges do they present for how we define and pursue public health moving forward? Lots to think about.